Haba v'Yerushalayim. Shabbat shalom.
No, your
Moadim
dad,
l'simcha.
your dad.
Here comes my dad. Tat, you're on mute still.
Shabbat shalom to all and Moadim l'simcha. There are 390,900 species of plants in the world. 2,000 of them are edible. About 200 of them are part of world commerce, and about 15 of them form the basis, the staples of our diet. And 4, and only 4, were chosen to be taken and shaken on Sukkot. And do you know, for generations, we've been discussing why these 4 and what their symbolism might be. Well, the Midrash weighs in with its own opinions, and here is one lesser known interpretation. Says the Midrash, the 4 species correspond to the 4 biblical personalities, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. Abraham, Avram, is the etrog, a beautiful person, just as the etrog is a beautiful fruit. Yitzchak, Isaac, is the lulav, the leaves are bound tightly to the spine, and Yitzchak allowed himself to be bound to the altar. Jacob, Yaakov, is the hadass. Just as the hadass is filled with leaves, so too Jacob's life was filled with children more than any of the other patriarchs and matriarchs. And Joseph is the arava, the willow branch. The arava is the first of the species to dry out, as any person who has a lulav and etrog will know. By the time you get to the 3rd or the 4th day of Sukkot, your arava is looking decidedly unhappy. And so it's the first to dry out and to die before the end of Yom Tov. Joseph, as it happens, was the first of the brothers to die. But the association of this midrash seems a little bit far-fetched. Is this the only way that we can be reminded of the patriarchs? We have to have 4 species to be remembered, to remember them and their qualities. Well, a few lines a little bit further on, the midrash comes along with yet another explanation, and this one is much better known. The 4 species, says the midrash, correspond to the different parts of the body. The etrog looks like a heart. The lulav, of course, looks like a spine. The leaf of the hadass is very similar to the shape of an eye, and the leaf of the arava, the willow, looks like the lips of a mouth. And binding them together, we fulfill the verse, B'chol atzmatai tovarna, with all of my bones, with all the parts of my body, will I praise the Almighty, will I praise God. And this midrash is also puzzling, because surely it is not just in Sukkot that one needs to remember that one has a heart, a spine, an eye, and lips, or a mouth with which to serve God. We know that all the year round. So one of our great commentators of the current era, Rabbi Yossi Jacobson, offers a very novel interpretation by suggesting that in fact these 2 midrashim need to be read together. They are connected. On Sukkot, one has to ask oneself, do I have a heart like Abraham? Do I have a spine like Isaac? Do I have eyes like Jacob? And do I have a mouth like Joseph? And what does this mean? What does it mean to have a heart like Abraham? An Abrahamic heart is open to every human being, caring, sharing, giving, and of course with extraordinary hospitality. Abraham and Sarah's tent was open on all sides in order to be able to welcome the wayfarers. And he and Sarah were kindness and goodness personified. So what does it mean to have an Abraham heart? Well, if a stranger walks into shul, you ask him, do you have a place to eat? Are you taken care of? Is there anything I can do for you? That's what it means to have an Abrahamic heart. There is a man called Rabbi Moshe Tzur. He was an Israel Air Force veteran who subsequently became an observant Jew. And he tells a story that he had a private audience with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And during the course of this interview or this audience, the Rebbe asked him, the right side of a person represents chesed, kindness, and the right always takes precedence in Judaism in lots of different ways. Remember that when Jacob had Ephraim and Manasseh come before him, his grandsons, to bless them, and he wanted to put his right hand on the one who was going to be the most blessed. So ask the Rebbe, if that's the case, why did God place our hearts on our left side? And of course, Rabbi Tzud didn't know the answer. And so the Rebbe said to him, the reason is because when you face another human being, your heart will be on that person's right side. And the whole purpose of having a heart is the way in which you use it for another human being. That's what it means to have an Abrahamic heart, a heart like Abraham. A spine like Yitzchak. Well, when it came to the test, Yitzchak was prepared to sacrifice his life for his faith. And from that moment onwards, throughout all of our history, Jews have had to do the same. And when it's been required of us, as it was in the time of the camps, they would walk upright with upright spines to their death, singing Ani Ma'amin. And that's what it means to have a spine like Isaac, like Yitzchak. And eyes like Jacob. There's a very famous American called Helen Keller, who was born at a very young age. She became blind and deaf as a result of an accident. And she was one of the 20th century's leading humanitarians, a very famous person. And she once said, the only thing more painful than not having eyesight is having eyesight, but not having vision. Jacob had vision. He had a vision of what he wanted for his children. He had a vision of what he believed the Jewish nation could be. He saw beyond his immediate circumstances. He was prepared to make bold decisions in his life to ensure that his children would help to fulfill that vision. That's what it means to have eyes like Jacob. And finally, a mouth like Joseph's. Well, when Joseph revealed himself to his brothers after 22 years of separation and most unexpected circumstances, not imagining that the man standing in front of them, who was the viceroy of Egypt, would be their brother, they were completely astonished, and they were in fact disbelieving. And Joseph had to do something to persuade them. And he says to them, my mouth speaks to you. And when he said that, they were convinced. Now, Rashi explains this by saying that up until that point of time, he had been speaking to them via an interpreter, but pretending that he didn't understand their language. But now he spoke to them in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh. And when that happened, of course, they knew that this must be their brother. But it could be more than that as well. It could be not just what he said or the language in which he spoke, but it could be also the way in which he spoke. Because the tone of speech is all important. Perhaps he spoke to them with a softness and a gentleness, and they sensed in his speech a humanity. That's Jewish speech. That's the way we talk to each other. That's the way we talk to our spouses. That's the way we talk to our children. That's the way we talk to our parents. That's the way we talk to our siblings. That's the way we talk even to strangers. That's what it means to have a mouth like Joseph's. And so these two midrashim together teach us that when we shake the four species, something within us needs to have a really good shake as well. And specifically, our hearts, our spines, our eyes, and our mouths. Shabbat Shalom. and Moedim L'Simcha.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Sean.
שלום.
Thank you,
מועדים
Shlomo.
לשמחה. תודה רבה.
It's a pleasure. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
שבת
Bye,
שלום.
Shalom. Take care.
Something to share at the table tonight.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Well, we'll see you, please God, for Shmini Atzeret. In just a few days' time, we'll have another session, some more singing, some more words, and then on to Shabbat Bereshit. It's never ending. It's a real business being Jewish this time of the year.
Take care.
All right, everyone.
Shabbat
Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to end the session as Shabbat is coming in. Great to see you. Thank you all for joining.